Hello, everyone.
I want to get a lot of people.
People are very busy and active in the chat already. That's nice to see.
That's great.
Where are you based, Jason?
I'm based in London. I'm in the new Royal Arsenal Riverside development. So I'm right on the river, which is gorgeous.
Perfect. Nice. I'm in Glasgow.
Ah, lovely. I love Glasgow.
Lovely Scotland.
Yes, it's colder than anywhere else, but you got deep fried Mars bars. That all works out.
True. I've never tried one.
I've never tried one. I've been 3 times. I still haven't had one.
Well, maybe next time we get one together.
I think so. I think I'll come up just so we can do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow, someone from Wisconsin is here.
Wow.
Brilliant. Welcome, welcome.
Guten Nacht, Germany. Don't know how to say hello in Romanian, which is sad. Sorry. Wow.
The person has to correct you if you're wrong.
Yes, exactly. It'll happen. It'll always happen. You see, a lot of people always jump on, I've noticed, between 5 and 5:02. I don't know why that is, but everyone seems to be quickly sliding into the show.
Okay, that's brilliant. There's another one from Glasgow. Yay!
Wow. Argentina, bonjour.
It's always nice to see where people are from. I love it. It's like, wow.
That's incredible.
Okay, I think let's get going. So welcome everyone. My name is Veronique and I work at BookBoon and I'm the moderator for this webinar on tips to increase your resilience with Jason Allan Scott. So a little bit of housekeeping. Some of you already have done this, so you can ask questions on the right side of your screen. And if you would like to access the question pod, please click on the X button. I will be the only one reading the questions in the question box. You can also chat with others by clicking at the bottom of your screen. So today's expert is Jason Allan Scott, and he has written many books for BookBoon, as well as published many experts. If you have any question during or after the presentation, please type them in the question box or in the chat. Before we start, I would also like to reintroduce BookBoon. We are one of the largest corporate learning providers, specializing in soft skills and business skills. We do this via ebooks, audio, and online courses. Enjoy the webinar, and I will speak to you afterwards. Jason, I'll give the stage to you.
Bonjour, merci beaucoup, I think is the correct one. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Allan Scott. I'm going to be talking you through resilience and the power of resilience and why it's important now more than ever possibly, and why I'm the right person to talk about it. Before that, we're going to try a little tech magic. And I'm going to swap over from this screen over to the presentation. And I do believe Veronique has this presentation, which she can send to you after this is all done. It's also just wanted to say it's so amazing to see so many people here from all over the world. That always makes me excited. It's always a reason why I kind of want to always help BookBoon as much as I can. So let's get straight to it. I believe now I'm sharing my screen, and if I go here, then you have the presentation. So let us, I don't know why I can't make this one big. Let me, odd chance, it's probably just this button here. There we go. And you should all see, normally I wear a hat. In fact, I feel quite guilty that I'm not hatted up for you right now, but I'll have one by the end of this show. I'm quite known for my silhouette. I normally wear a suit and a hat, and very often no socks and shoes, which is pretty difficult in this weather. But that is my sort of look that I go for. I believe in personal branding. I've done rather well thanks to personal branding. And Matt Groening, those that are fans of The Simpsons will know, Matt Groening said, if you can be known by your silhouette, you understand brand. And this is my brand. Resilience is incredibly important now more than ever. I mentioned that in the beginning. Now, what is resilience? Psychological resilience is the ability to mentally or emotionally cope with a crisis or to return to pre-crisis status quickly. Resilience exists when the person uses mental processes and behaviors in promoting personal assets and protecting self from the potential negative effect of stresses. That's it. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things right now, but if you can kind of have that in the top of your head, the whole idea of resilience is to get you to what you were before the crisis came, before the difficulty came, before the challenge arose. And that is so, so important to everything we're about to talk about. So I want to start by taking some questions, or by asking some questions. I won't be able to see your results, but I'd still like you to type it into that chat bar. And here's my first question. I want you to type yes if you've ever lost someone you truly love. I want you to type yes if you've ever had your heart broken. I want you to type yes if you've ever struggled through an acrimonious divorce or been the victim of infidelity. Please type yes in the box now. I'd like you to type yes if you've ever lived through a natural disaster. Type yes if you've ever been bullied, if you've ever been made redundant, if you've ever been fired, if you're currently furloughed. Finally, I want you to type yes if you or anyone you love has had to cope with mental illness, dementia, some form of physical impairment, or cope with suicide or the loss of a loved one. Please type yes now in the box. If you take a moment to look at that box, you'll see that adversity doesn't discriminate. If you are alive, you're going to have to deal with adversity. The chances are, as you've seen, you already have dealt with it, that hard times come to all of us, not some of us. All of us have to deal with tough times. Before I continue, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to type yes, to be honest with yourself, to be honest with this group. Understanding where you are and who you are and what you've been through is always the start of any form of change. Now, who am I? My name is Jason Allan Scott. I was born in Cape Town, South Africa. And there's quite a few South Africans on this webinar today. I grew up a minority inside of a minority, a white South African in the 1970s, when the white population made up only 8.9% of Southern Africa. And I was a poor white, which is even a smaller minority within a minority. Current estimates of white poverty in South Africa run as high as 12%, as you can see by this quote, although they say this is grossly inflated, and there's as little as 7,754 households. Well, I know for a fact I grew up in a house in the middle of a council estate where there were far more than 7,754 households. So those facts are not straight, but anyone that grows up in Africa knows that facts and fiction are often the same when it comes to the media and what the media puts out there. I know a lot about resilience from this. I also know because I was kidnapped as a child of 5. I was shot in an attempted homicide incident at 12. I have survived a tsunami in Thailand, a bombing in Thailand, 2 bombings in South Africa, in Cape Town, one at St. Elmo's and one at, and I laugh only out of nerves because I remember the pure fear, another one at Planet Hollywood within the waterfront. Multiple shootings, a stabbing, multiple muggings, 3 carjackings. But my true test would come when I went blind at 38. For 3 days, I was completely without sight. I would later find out that I had something called multiple sclerosis, multiple scars running down my spine and in my brain. Those scars caused from holes affecting my myelin sheath. Those holes stopped the electricity running from the thing that was needing to be used, in this case my eyes, and my brain from taking in the information. Waking up, not knowing where I am, not being able to see myself, and then sometimes not knowing who I was one of the most unthinkable experiences I've ever had to go through. My entire world was smashed to smithereens. I thought that I'd had resilience. I'd been through all these things. I'd been through stabbings and shootings and bombings and pandemics. I'd seen the AIDS pandemic take over the world and take over Africa as a young child. I'd seen apartheid. I'd seen the release of Nelson Mandela, the preparation for civil war, I was prepared. We had cans of food and toilet paper and guns in our house as we waited for Madiba to declare war upon the whites. But it never came. But my resilience was stronger for it. But this was altogether new. This idea that my body was my enemy, my brain would become a saboteur of my life. The doctor, drawn very cutely here, said, oh, there's more news for you, Jason. Due to this and your childhood, you could knock 20 years off your life expectancy. Oh, and there's a likelihood you'll be in a wheelchair and, that take off another 10 years because of that. And of course, the high risk of mental illness, all said with some sort of smile, as if it would be okay, no matter what bad news she delivered to me that day. Wow, I remember thinking, thanks for that. And I thought my life was already pretty shit, if I'm honest. They hand you a leaflet when this happens. And in this leaflet, it describes the 5 stages that you will go through. They call it the 5 stages of grief. It's anger, bargaining, denial, depression, and acceptance. I was told to make no big decisions and write off the next 5 years to grief and grief alone. Now, I know the leaflets and the resources were there to mean well. They were there to offer advice. But they left me feeling like a victim, disempowered. I was totally overwhelmed by the journey ahead and powerless to exert any influence over my grieving whatsoever of the life that was waiting for me. And also the life that I had lost, the life that I would never live in due to this new circumstance. I didn't need to be told how bad things were. Believe me, I already knew that things were truly terrible. What I needed most was hope. I needed a journey through all that anguish, pain, and longing. Most of all, I wanted to be an active participant in my growth, in my grief process. So I decided to turn my back on their advice and decided instead to conduct something of a self-experiment. I would research the answers. I would find the tools. Now, I have to confess at this point, I really didn't know that any of this was going to work. I was scared. I felt old. I felt broken. But I can tell you, 7 years on, what I already knew from childhood, that anyone can rise up from adversity, and that there are strategies that work. That it is utterly possible to make yourself think and act in certain ways that help you navigate tough times. That there is a monumental body of research on how to do this stuff. And today, I'm going to share with you 3 proven, successful, easy to put into action strategies. And these were my strategies in the darkest of dark days. Number 1, resilient people get that fit hits the shan on occasion. We get it. These strategies, this idea, this number 1 idea got me through my MS. It got me through a painful divorce that followed and brain damage diagnosis. And they're available to you right now to write down, to memorize. But I have a feeling these things will stick because they're easy to understand. Resilient people know that suffering is part of life. And this doesn't mean that we welcome it, that, none of us are delusional, but we know that tough times come. We seem to know that suffering is part of every human existence. And knowing this stops us from feeling discriminated against when the tough times come. Never once did I find myself thinking, why me? In fact, I remember thinking, why not me? Being a podcaster, an author, a keynote speaker, I speak and ask questions to people with such resilience from their past when they're talking about their stories. And all of them agree on this particular thing, this idea that terrible things happen to you, just like they do everybody else. That's your life now. Time to sink or swim, was what one person said to me who had no arms and no legs. He said his mantra was, not dead, can't quit. He said the real tragedy is that it's not enough for some of us to do nothing. We seem to live in an age where we're entitled to a perfect life. It's this, shiny, happy photos on Instagram make us feel like that's the norm. When actually, as we've all demonstrated at the start of the talk, the norm is the very opposite of this. The truth is, bad things happen. Resilient people understand that bad things happen, and it's just not personal. Number 2, resilient people are really good at choosing carefully where they select their attention. I'm sure you've heard the expression, what you focus on grows. Where you spend your attention is what will grow exponentially. We have a habit of realistically appraising situations and typically managing to focus on the things that we can change and somehow accept the things that we can't. And this is vital. This is a learnable skill for resilience. As humans, we are really good at noticing threats and weaknesses. We are hardwired for the negative. We're really, really good at noticing them. Negative emotions stick to us like Velcro, where positive emotions and experiences seem to bounce off us like Teflon. Being wired in this way was actually really good for us. It served us well from an evolutionary perspective. I mean, imagine that moment when you're a cave person, you're coming out of the cave in the morning and there's a saber-toothed tiger on your left and a beautiful rainbow on the other. It kind of pays to our survival to notice the tiger. The problem is we now live in an era where we are constantly bombarded by threats all day long, and our poor brains treat every single one of those threats as if they were that tiger. Our threat focus, our stress response is permanently dialed to 11. Resilient people don't diminish the negative, but they've also worked out that there's a way of tuning into the good. One day, when doubts were threatening to overwhelm me, I distinctively remember thinking, no, you do not get swallowed up by this. You have to survive. You've got so much to live for. Choose life, not death. Don't lose what you have to what you have lost. I found out later through a great deal of CBT and therapy that they call this benefit finding. In my brave new world, it involved trying to find things to be grateful for. At least I got my sight back. At least I could walk most days. I could run. I remember I could do far more than the average person, work longer, read more, understand, comprehend. Being able to switch focus of my attention to include the good has been proven by science to be a powerful strategy. In 2005, in fact, a guy called Martin Seligman and his colleagues conducted an experiment. They asked people to think of 3 good things that had happened to them each day. That's all, 3 good things every single day. But what they found was that over 6 months, that most people showed higher levels of gratitude, higher levels of happiness, and less depression over the course of the 6-month study. When you're going through tough times, and we really all are right now, aren't we? You might need a reminder, or maybe you just need permission to feel grateful. Someone posted on Instagram, I think it was a Sophia Giblin, that it's tough right now to work from home. And we might focus on how tough it is, instead of realizing how lucky we are to have work and have a home. This small change of perspective to notice what to be grateful for makes all the difference when going through tough times. Whatever you do, make an intentional, deliberate, ongoing effort to tune into what's good in your world. Allow me to give you permission right now to tune into what's good in your world. Number 3, resilient people ask themselves, is what I'm doing helping or harming me? This is a question that's used a lot in good therapy. And boy, is it powerful. This was my go-to question in the days after my divorce. In fact, for the whole year after that, I asked this. I would ask it again and again. This question can be applied to so many different contexts. Is the way I'm thinking and acting helping or harming me? In this bid to get that promotion, to pass that exam, to recover from that heart attack or illness, so many different ways. I write and speak a lot about resilience, and over the years, this one strategy has prompted more positive feedback than any other. It gets scores of letters and emails and things from all over the world saying what an impact this has had. Whether it's forgiving a family an ancient transgression, arguments from Christmas pasts, or whether it's just trolling through social media, whether it is asking yourself whether you really need that extra glass of wine, asking yourself whether what you're doing, whether what you're thinking, whether how you're acting is helping or harming you, puts you back in control, puts you back in the driver's seat of your life. It gives you control over your decision making. And these 3 strategies, pretty simple, are available to us anytime, anywhere. They don't require rocket science. They don't require hours and hours and hours of therapy or speaking to resilient people in different industries and areas. Resilience isn't some fixed trait. It's not elusive. It's not something that some people have and some people don't. It actually requires very ordinary processes. The willingness to give them a go. I think we all have moments in life when our life path splits and the journey we thought we were going down veers off to some terrible direction that we never anticipated, and we certainly never wanted. It happened to me. It was awful beyond imagining. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where you think there's no way I'm coming back from this, I urge you to lean into these strategies and think again. The ability to build resilience is a skill that will serve you well in an increasingly stressful work and world we all live in now. Choose life, not death. Don't lose what you have to what you have lost. Something very simple to write down and remind yourself of. Remind yourself of benefit funding, to take the time to write just 3 things every single day that you're grateful for. Make it intentional, make it deliberate, as an ongoing effort to tune in to what's good in your world. I can't pretend that this thinking is easy, but I can promise you it works if you work it. The ability to build resilience is a skill that will serve you well over and over and over again. Building an organizational culture that encourages and supports resilience training makes good business sense. Thank you now for your time and your attention. And don't forget, no matter what, to be resilient. I'm going to switch back and come back to your questions, should you have any, or just be there to look at. If I can work out how to go back. Oh, there we go. Great.
Thank you very much, Jason, for that. Thank you very much. It's a very inspiring and uplifting webinar that you gave us today. Thank you very much for that. And also for sharing your personal experience with challenges and tough life experiences.
Yes.
So thank you very much for that. What we're going to do now is basically a Q&A session. Please, you can put your questions in the chat box or in the question box, and then I'm going to go over them and ask Jason the questions. So we have our first questions. So how do you keep up with rapidly changing technology to keep from feeling left behind? What would you say, Jason?
I would say take it one piece at a time. I'm currently working on a piece of tech, right? And it's a tech that will help people to monetize underutilized assets, the things that we have all the time that we could actually make money on. And there's so much pieces of tech around this that I'm trying to jam stack together. Those been programming will know the expression to jam stack. And when I originally tried to take it on, it seemed too much. It was overwhelming. I felt a little bit of anxiety and pressure, and I started thinking maybe I'm too old to be trying to start a tech business. But when I started breaking it up and looking at it one by one by one, and then asking myself the question of what one thing will make the most difference, right? It's Pareto's law. What 20% of focus will give me 80% of result? There's a great mantra that I use very often. In fact, it's written all over the show. And it says, has anyone in the history of time less clever or stupider than me worked this out? That's it. And the answer is yes. Guaranteed someone has. So why not me? Why can't I work it out? Why can't I ask someone? Why can't I find a YouTube video? Why can't I read something? And why can't I take it one small step at a time?
Thank you very much for that, Jason. Absolutely. Step by step, small steps. Another one asks how to continue more effectively when team members do not appreciate your presence in the team. Good question.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question. And it happens so much. Try and find the root of the problem. It's very rarely you. It's very rarely something you do or something you have done or something you've said. It's very much and mostly about them, about that person, which is in that group of that type of people that have bound themselves around a common something, a common enemy, a common dislike because of negative bias, right? Like we talked about with the tiger. It's far easier to talk about the negative and talk about how that binds us than it is for all of us to find a commonality of something that works. Try and break up the group, try and speak to them individually, try and find out exactly what's going on. And I think you'll find more often than not, it's about broken pieces that make up a broken whole, and it has nothing to do with you.
Thank you. Someone else asked, the difficult thing seems to me that one needs the resilience when we are least well equipped to have the spare resources to develop these skills. So what kind of advice would you give to him?
Well, that's a fact. So tell him he's 100% right. It's the irony of the situation. It's kind of like saying, you know, why is it I only ever need a baseball bat to play baseball? Well, resilience is there because you are going to need it. And yes, you will probably need it the most when in the most crisis-filled moments. I do a talk about leadership through crisis with BookBoon, and I talk about how there's these two states. There's a crisis state, which is the fight, the flight, the flee, the freeze, and then there's the glow state, which is you feel empowered, you feel you can take on the world. And very often we feel in glow state when there's no reason to feel in crisis state. There's a reason we feel in crisis state because we are being attacked, because we can't take it. There's so much to take on. So what's the answer? The answer is to practice these three strategies during the glow moments, during the times when it isn't so powerful. It's like learning to swim in calmer waters so that when the waves do come, when the choppiness does come, it's easier to swim through. It's never a breeze. Like I said, I've lived through some incredible things throughout history, throughout time, some insane, weird stories, as this woman that I'm madly in love with keeps calling it. But it hasn't made it easier, or it doesn't made it not come. The bad time still came, but it's made it easier to get through because I can go to these strategies. I can go to these tools. There's a great expression that's used in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is, funny enough, a part of these strategies, which is this idea of knowing what you can fix, knowing what you can't fix, what can you deal with, what can't you deal with, and having the wisdom to know the difference between these two things.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Another question. So someone says that they have gone through a lot and they feel much stronger now, but for some reason they often tend to underestimate their self-worth. So how do they find resilience in dealing with this?
So I don't think that's a resilience issue. I think that's probably a neurotic issue or an observant issue or an ego issue. And the best thing to deal with that is to separate fact from feeling. You feel you're not good enough. You feel you can't do it. You feel it's too much. But look at the facts. Have you made it through something similar before? Have you proven that you can get through this? Have you proven that you can do this thing that now seems too much? Separating that fact and feeling, separating the opinion from the truth makes a gigantic difference. There are often times, and I've done over 200 and something talks now to global audiences, but I'll sometimes get just to the stage and I'll start getting really, really nervous. I did a talk, I think 2 years ago, with a guy. I have a podcast, a couple of podcasts, I've sold a couple of podcasts, but he had 150 million downloads, and I couldn't comprehend having that many. That's so big, and maybe I'm not good enough to share a stage with him. And then I had to go back and look at facts. Facts I've done better than most people. I might have some. I made money from day one in my podcast. He waited 3 years before he made money out of his podcast. I just looked at the facts. I separated facts from feeling.
Perfect.
Can I answer one more question before you do your next one? Stefan Wagstaff asked the question, how do you focus on one thing at a time when these things are all coming at you at once, emails, phone calls, etc.? I really struggled with this for many, many years, to be honest with you. And what I found works is scheduling, right? And it's always near me. I've got these books everywhere. And I schedule that the next 2 hours, I'm only working on this. I'm not answering emails. I'm not answering phone calls. I'm not doing anything. People try and send me messages or try and call me or WhatsApp me or text me or Signal me or Clubhouse, Facebook, Twitter. I send them a message. It's got my calendar link that's got when they can actually book. So I have this time, which is for family time. They can call me then. And friends time, they can call me then. And potential clients, they can call me in this space. I've got these different calendar links that allows them to schedule in. I don't do impromptu calls anymore. I don't do, hey, I was just taking a walk. I thought I'd give you a buzz. And then they suck up an hour of your time. And if it's bad news, you've got this bad news hangover that lasts into the next bit of work you do and the next bit of work you do. Chunk out your time and try your best to get as many wins as you can first thing in the morning. Because if you can control the morning, you can control the day. If you control the day, you control the week. If you control the week, you control your life. Hope that answers your question, Stefan.
Thank you very much for that. Gonna have a look. Do we have another question?
Monet Beitendach. I haven't heard a name like that in ages. Nice name, Monet.
Someone asked, have you ever done a job where you constantly feel overwhelmed and anxious? And how have you overcome this?
I worked for a major hospitality company as a consultant. I don't know, it's probably 7-8 years ago now. And in all honesty, I didn't feel cool enough. I didn't feel smart enough. I didn't feel connected enough. I didn't think I dressed well enough. I was constantly questioning myself and finding it really, really hard. Everyone around me just seemed so put together, so organized, and I didn't feel it. And again, to be transparent, I actually quit. I couldn't work it out. I tried and tried and tried. And I remember being really down about it for a very long period of time. And as I said, I was going through therapy 2 years ago for a solid year. And I remember bringing it up with my therapist. And I said, what could I have done differently? She was really good. She was really helping me. And I thought, I wonder what I could ask her. Like, how could I have done that differently? And she said, there's a great quote by Albert Einstein that said, if you judge a fish by how the fish climbs a tree, you're always going to get a negative response. Sometimes you just don't fit. That's the fact. And the best thing you can do is remove yourself from that situation. It's not right for you. It's not, for whatever reason, it's just not your core of competence. Warren Buffett, the famous investor, talks about staying in your lane, staying in your core of competence. Right? He doesn't do well in cryptocurrencies because that's not his core competence. His core competence is big companies that last forever that he buys into: insurance, Coca-Cola, Kentucky, McDonald's, that kind of thing. So really ask yourself, is this where you shine? Is this the right area, the right environment? Are you a goldfish in a tree? or you're a goldfish in a bowl. It's doing exactly what it should do.
Very good. And then someone asked how to be or stay resilient when there's no end date at slight to a complicated situation. So maybe COVID.
So great question, Magali. This happened with AIDS. This happened with those in South Africa know what it was like in AIDS in the 80s. If you were born in that period of time, we wrapped our fruit in plastic. We were scared to touch one another. We were scared to be in the same room as one another. It was absolutely frightening. We didn't know how we were going to get through it, when it would ever end. The rest of the world was starting to come down. South Africa was going up with our AIDS statistics. It was frightening, absolutely frightening. And I tell you what works, how you stay resilient, is by reminding yourself of a couple of core truths. One, every single thing that it was bad, inverted commas, if you're not looking at your screen, has passed. That's just life. Things move. Nature moves. There's no winter without summer. There's no summer without winter. These things will pass. How do you prepare through it? Realize that most of the time, it's a marathon. It's very rarely a sprint. Don't go all in immediately. Pace yourself. Create routines you can work with. Create something to look forward to every day, whether it's a small piece of chocolate, a sip of wine, calling a friend or family member that makes you laugh, watching a TV show that you enjoyed. Just yesterday, I watched Cinderella, the 1950s version. Just, it broke up my day. It was fun. It put me in a good mood. I can go back to work. Know that this is a long period of time, but it will pass. The Great Depression was 10 recessions in a row, but it passed. We saw the 2008 financial crisis, insanely terrible, but it passed. Before we knew it, we were spending ridiculous amounts of money on mobile phones and laptops and et cetera, when before it was a period when many of us couldn't afford food. Most of us come from a place where we can afford to shop, when many of our ancestors probably would never have known what that was like. They bought what they needed and used, and that was it. Everything will pass. Remind yourself of this. Your resilience doesn't need to last forever. It just needs to last today. Yesterday is a memory. It no longer exists, and it has no importance to you. Tomorrow is pure fiction. It's an imagination. It's an hypothesis. Someone's making it up. A politician, a medicine person, they're all coming up with hypotheses. They don't know what's going to happen any more than they knew the pandemic was coming. Think of how silly it was in a job interview when they asked you, where you're going to be in 5 years. Did anyone say, in a room, in lockdown, working from home, in my pajamas, wearing, a jacket and shirt on top, but a pair of shorts underneath? No one. So nobody knows. So just get through today. What can I do today to get me through today? Can I do a bit of exercise? Can I do a bit of meditating? Can I do a bit of gratitude writing? Can I do something that makes me laugh and lifts up my spirits? Can I help someone else laugh and lift up their spirits? What can I do every single day? I've got my day broken up. I've got spiritual, financial, family, career, mental, social, physical, and recreational. And I just put something in every one of those blocks every single day. And I tick them. Did I do something spiritual today? Yes, I spent some time writing out 3 things that make me happy and grateful. Financial, what did I do to help me with my money coming in? So that makes me feel more calm. Family, did I at least call, text, SMS, Facebook, one family member, even like their post? Career, where did I go to move myself? Mental, what am I reading? Maybe it's an audiobook. Maybe it's a YouTube video explaining something that might help my life. Social, this is very difficult right now, but can I speak to a neighbor? Can I shut out the window? Can I go for a walk where there's a dog club somewhere? Just think of something you can do that's social. Again, this can be a phone call, Zoom, or WhatsApp. Physical, skip. Even if it's without a real rope, skipping burns more calories over longer periods than anything else, and it's low impact, and it's unlike a burpee, it's not going to kill you. And recreational, do something for fun, for the pure joy of it. A hot bath, a smelling of candles, give yourself a massage, lather in cream, get new sheets, whatever it takes. It can be so small. Now I buy little things off eBay, which is terrible, but it makes me feel good at least once a week. So these things make a big difference.
Thank you very much, Jason, for sharing that. I think on this positive note on bath candles and bath salts, I think we're going to end the webinar. Thank you very much for this lovely webinar, Jason. And thank all of the questions, thank all of the participants for their questions. So I hope we'll see you again. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Sawubona, I see you. And Shakobe, I am better because I see you. Have a great one. Take care.
Bye-bye.